First of all, I really want to thank everybody who came out tonight. I want to thank all of you for coming out. I really appreciate it. We're starting off small, but that's okay. You know, we've got a year until next November, and what's really important, you know, is not how many people that we have that show up for this sort of thing, but I want to make sure that I hate to sound biased, but I want to make sure that we have the right kind of people. I mean, I want to make sure that we have, in the beginning, we have the people that I know I can count on, the people that have been friends with me, the new friends that we're making that I know we share a lot of common beliefs. You know, one of the things that I think is a little bit unusual that we're doing is I just got off the phone with the news press, and the one question I was waiting for is the one question they didn't bother to ask, which has a little bit to do with why I'm the attachment that I have to this particular building. You know, the idea of actually kicking this off in a mosque building, I'm sure is probably going to irk a few people out there. But I have no problem with it. You know, I'm certainly more than proud to be associated with this community. In particular, there's a couple people who have just been absolutely amazing to me. We have Muhammad Al-Hassani over here, his wife Paulette, who I feel like they've adopted me sometimes. Hopefully I can pay back all the kindness that they've showed. We've got Ahmed Al-Haddad here, who has also been a huge, tremendous help to me. We have Sohail Zidane here, who has also been a tremendous supporter of everything that I've done. And all of these people that I have been fortunate enough to have in my life, they make me realize how important it is and how you can't get very far without the support of friends and family who are willing to take chances and believe in you. And as indebted as I am to everyone who has helped to get me here today, there comes a point in all of our lives when we have to do something that no one else can do. It's what makes each of us unique. It's that moment when we have to stand up and establish who we are. And even if it only lasts a moment, at that particular point, we're on our own. So, my friends, what I want to say is, tonight, I stand here before you as a man alone. But that's all right. That's no problem. I've been alone before. I'm used to it. As much as I appreciate all the people that have graced my life, I realized a long time ago that I needed to follow a path in my life that defies conventional expectations and measures of success. I knew I had to risk failure and rejection and chart a course that few people dare to take or even to recognize. I believe in the ideal of pursuing a worthy goal and following a personal vision, even if no one else dares to dream it possible. You know, the books and the movies I used to spend my childhood watching all the time, I was sure that there was a word for people who do this. Someone who was like, you know, Luke Skywalker, Spider-Man, and Abraham Lincoln all rolled into one. That's exactly who I wanted to be when I grew up. And as I got older, I discovered exactly what the word was that other people have for that type of person. Crazy. I mean, you know, it's one thing when you're a kid to have your eyes on the stars and want to change the world, but when you grow up, everyone tells you that there comes a time when you've got to get back down to earth. You got to get that steady job, the mortgage, the nice car, and maybe then you can be that good, productive citizen. After that, you can work your way up the ladder of respectability, do what all the other respectable people are doing, and then finally you'll be at the top of your game. And when you get there, if you want to ask, well, is there maybe something more? That's okay. That means you'd be a good artist, a preacher, a philosopher. But if you actually want to get out and prove that there's something else, well, that's just crazy talk. See, even my mic thinks it's crazy. I mean, people are going to say to you, you know, what else is there really? If you want to question the way that things are done, everyone says, good for you. The world needs more free thinkers. But if you actually really want to go out and do things differently, don't expect anybody to reward you for it. You know, unless, of course, you consider Prozac or lithium a reward. When you find yourself traveling the road away from respectability towards crazy town, you manage to avoid the lure of the pharmaceuticals, both the illegal and illegal kind. You end up spending a lot of time alone. And when you travel that lonely path with little or no guidance for anyone else, you're bound to make mistakes. A couple of days ago, I was putting together a bio to put out for this candidacy. And when I look back on my life, I suppose I could easily fill out a halfway decent resume. And as I was doing so, I was thinking about the things I've done. I was an intelligence analyst in the Army for 5 years. I helped manage an international telecom firm during the height of the internet boom. I've traveled the world. I've written a book. I started my own TV production company. But for me personally, when I look at all that, it's difficult not to see the failures. I remember all the times in between when I found myself. Good, I might turn this off.
Yeah, the sound is okay.
Yeah.
Not too much. You didn't have to
We
shout.
don't need that. Like I said, it's difficult for me not to see the hard times that I've experienced. I remember, when I found myself in the depths of depression or on the edge of obsession. I remember the bridges I burned, the debts, going into bankruptcy, all those constant doubts, the struggles, and the indignities of living a life that the rest of the world seems to care a little for. And when you go through all this, after a while, you start to question if there really is something wrong with you. If it's you, or if it's maybe the world that you find yourself outside of looking in, that's based on nothing more than superficial appearances and the desire for inconsequential things that really don't matter. Of course, the rest of the world is usually pretty quick to weigh in on that too. And they generally have a different take on things. But sometimes there's a crack in the facade of the world. That mask of respectability slips for just a little bit, and other people start to ask the same questions. Sometimes this happens on a personal level, sometimes on a national level. And when it happens on the national level, it might take the viciousness of a terrorist attack, the brutality of a war, or the tragedy of a natural disaster to break people away from all those superficial distractions. But it's not so much these terrible events that wake people up. Rather, it's our own innate calling to wisdom and to compassion that usually brings us around. And when we find ourselves looking to the most respected leaders of our society, and we see these qualities missing from the responses that they give to these crises, we all of us, we start to ask questions. And more people start to wonder if maybe there really is a better way of doing things. When we're told that the respectable thing to do is to disregard the fundamental principles of equality and justice that this society was founded upon, and to ignore the rule of law whenever it becomes an inconvenience, a lot of people begin to wonder. When we see our government react to senseless violence with only more of the same, we have to ask if there is another way. When we see our leaders virtually ignore the suffering that's caused from one disaster and driving headlong into another, people start to realize maybe it's time for a change. And sometimes it doesn't even take a tragedy. All it takes to really get people wondering is something simple. Like say an undercover cop in a bathroom stall. Something like that, it makes us question how we choose our leaders. But the bottom line is, whatever it is that gets people wondering, I find that now when I look around America, I don't feel quite so crazy and alone anymore. When I look around, what I see is I see a nation that has more than its share of resume-worthy history. But I also see a people that have suffered through terrible shocks and depression. I see a country that has chased its own obsessions, burned bridges, a society that increasingly deals with mounting debts and bankruptcy. I see a nation that is now experiencing its own doubts and struggling against a world that seems to care less and less for our way of doing things. I look at all these things and I think to myself, wow, that's exactly what I went through. I start to remember that maybe there was actually a reason why I decided to find my own way. I remember that there was something I thought I could do, some vision, some worthy goal. But the question is, how do you regain your footing after years of missteps? What do you do when you find yourself considered among the lowest of the low? How How do you regain the respect of a world that's written you off after you've lost all respectability? Then it hit me. I'll run for Congress. Now, granted, it's not as simple as all that. You know, my decision process was a little more involved. But still, I found myself asking, how do we get to a place where supposedly sane and respectable people were doing so many things that were clearly anything but? How did we get into Iraq? How did we get to Guantanamo? How did we end up with so much crushing debt? When did we decide that greed and corruption was just the price of doing business? When did the truth start to matter less and less compared to the spin? And that's what I realized it's really all about, what it all comes down to, the truth. What we need to do is we need to find a way that we can get back to the truth. And the only way we can do that is to be honest. Honest with ourselves and honest with each other. That's what this is all about. That's why I'm standing here today. And that's what's so crazy about Crazy for Congress. This is a political campaign all about telling the truth. Now I know every politician says that. Every politician says, hey, trust me, I'd never lie to you. But the question is, how can we make it different this time? Well, as a great president who I'm sure told a fib or two in his time said, trust but verify. For perhaps the first time in history, we have the technology to keep an eye on everything a candidate says and does. And with the internet, not only can we do this cheaply and efficiently, we also have the means to allow for constant feedback and dialogue with the candidate. Imagine it. Virtually 24 hours of constant contact and scrutiny. How much could we really find out about the candidate? How much more would we be able to influence the process? All we need now is someone crazy enough to run under these conditions. That's why I'm here. Starting in November, virtually everything I say and do will be on the record for all to see. Starting in November, I'll most likely be moving to that little house over here on the side of the parking lot. And I plan to spend the next year with that camera, going around and talking and getting to know the real people of Southwest Florida. I want to build an honest-to-goodness, real grassroots consensus about what this district really needs. And the cameras are going to be with me every step of the way. And come next November, if the voters of this district see fit to send me to Washington, I promise those cameras will follow us there as well. And we will hold the rest of the federal government to the same standards of transparency, integrity, and accountability that we establish here. Now, this is going to take a lot of dedication and a lot of maturity on all our parts, not just me. No doubt, there's going to be plenty of times with the cameras constantly rolling that things are going to get done or things are going to get said that are going to offend somebody or another. And that's okay. Because what we've got to do is we've got to be willing to be honest with each other. And we've got to realize that sometimes otherwise good people say or do things that they shouldn't. We've got to learn to get past the sound bites. We've got to look at the context of what's really going on and what's really being done. We've got to remember that the process of running a campaign is really about running a race. Is really about running a nation. And that's a race that's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And we, the people, we're not the spectators. We're the runners. But the bottom line, all the campaigning and all the running for office in the world isn't going to get us anywhere if we don't have some guiding vision on where we're going. If we don't know the course that we're setting. You know, when I listen to the loudest voices out there that we hear all the time now, I find that vision is lacking. You know, from the right, I hear a philosophy of more, heedless to the costs. I hear about all these boundless opportunities that seem to pay off with no regard for any responsibility to those left behind. From the left, I hear this timid voice of protest, but no vision to carry us forward. They seem more than willing to help us, bring up the less fortunate, but to what? Once we achieve sustainability, where do we go from there? From other corners, the speakers for religion look reverently to the past. Meanwhile, the proponents of science make promises about tomorrow. But what about the here and now? And from all of these disparate voices, we have to form a consensus. That consensus must emerge. There has to be a balance. We have to stop shouting at each other about all the differences and learn to appreciate all that we share in common. As Americans, we need to forge anew a shared vision of responsibility for the destiny of this nation, and we have to better understand humanity's true place in this world. Real leadership comes from setting an example. Real leadership comes from a willingness to make sacrifices. It comes from a willingness to be generous, to reward success, and to accept failure. And most importantly, it comes from the strength to be able to admit when we make mistakes ourselves. We have to be able to admit our own failures as well. When we talk about democracy, we tend to condemn only those tyrants who openly challenge our national interests. All the while, we support the worst tyrants out there who simply stay quiet about what we do. If we truly want to preach democracy, then we need to make sure that we are truly practicing this, both here at home and abroad. We need to recognize that human rights don't end at the border, and the rule of law must apply equally to all. We need to help strengthen international institutions and build them up upon the same principles and justice equality that have guided the best that this nation has had to offer from the beginning. We can only do this by setting the example. And then, once we set that example, we have to build support through real knowledgeable consensus, not just here in this country, not just here in this district, but around the world. This is how we practice democracy, and this is what we need to spread. You know, if there's one thing that I know, it's that God did not give us this earth and the boundless stars out there just so we could endlessly fight each other over a few miles of dirt. Humanity's better destiny only comes from recognizing what we all share. It's a process of building each other up, not tearing everything down. Unity and creativity are the path to the future, not destruction and war. And just because all those stars are out there, surrounded by countless worlds, that doesn't mean we can ignore our responsibilities as caretakers of this earth. America, as a nation, is not simply on this earth. America is in the earth, and the land is an important part of the essence of who we are. And while we can say that America's reality may be here on the ground for now, in truth, the American dream is truly in the stars. At least that's the way I see things. But, you know, then again, I'm just a crazy person. So, I don't know. What do I know? Right now, the one thing I do know is that we've still got a long way to go before we can even think about reaching for the stars. Right now, we've got a lot of immediate and practical concerns that we need to take care of, like running this campaign for starters. And I hope that I can count on support from all of you that are here today, from those of you that might see this video in the future. I hope that we can all work together and get from where we are today to that future in the stars. Thank you.